All right, so the next one here, the U.S. lifts ban on arming the neo-Nazi Azov Brigade. So the State Department announced on Monday that it has formally lifted a ban on arming and training the Azov Brigade, an infamous Ukrainian neo-Nazi military unit. The Azov Brigade celebrated the news, saying, quote, "The eligibility for U.S. assistance will not only increase Azov's combat effectiveness, this is a new page in the history of our unit. Azov is becoming more professional and more effective in defending Ukraine against the invaders," end quote. The Azov Brigade was founded as a militia in 2014, known as the Azov Battalion, and they were founded to fight Ukrainian separatists in the Donbass. And this unit was later absorbed by Ukraine's National Guard. And the Azov's founder, Andriy Beletsky, he is notorious for his neo-Nazi and white supremacist kind of rhetoric. In 2014, as an example, another group that he led at the time, it was an ultra-nationalist organization known as the Social National Assembly, SNA. BBC reported in 2014 that the SNA, again, this is the Azov founders' other group at the time in 2014, wrote in online publications that it aimed to, quote, "prepare Ukraine for further expansion and to struggle for the liberation of the entire white race from the domination of the internationalist speculative capital," end quote. The group also sought, quote, "to punish severely sexual perversions and any interracial contacts that lead to the extinction of the white man," end quote. So Beletsky was elected to the Ukrainian parliament in 2014 after the U.S.-backed coup that ousted Yanukovych, and he later left the Azov Battalion due to a ban on elected officials serving in the military. He became the leader of the National Core Party, which was formed in 2016, and he still leads that party today. And he lost his seat in parliament in 2019. But he's still, this political party that he leads is part of, the political side of what's known as like the Azov movement, kind of the ultra-nationalist movement in Ukraine. So supporters of the Azov Brigade and the U.S. government are trying to rebrand the military unit and distance it from Beletsky. But the regiment still uses the Wolfsangel symbol, which is associated with neo-Nazi ideology. If you see their flag here, there's lots of different Nazi military units that used this symbol, similar symbols to this. And its current leader is, again, part of this Azov movement, going back to 2014, when going back to the hardcore this ideology. They've kind of toned down the rhetoric because they know they want weapons from the U.S. But I put a quote in here from a Ukrainian-American journalist who told CNN in 2022, quote, "The current leader of the Azov regiment, Denis Prokopenko, is part of the core of the Azov movement since 2014 and served under commanders who went on to lead the Azov movement political and street wings," end quote, and that includes Beletsky. U.S. assistance to Azov was banned by an amendment to the 2018 National Defense Authorization Act. That's not too long ago. And Representative Ro Khanna, Democrat from California, who has actually supported the Ukraine proxy war, he was involved in this amendment, and he said at the time, after it was passed, quote, "White supremacy and neo-Nazism are unacceptable and have no place in our world. I am very pleased that the recently passed omnibus prevents the U.S. from providing arms and training assistance to the neo-Nazi Azov Battalion fighting in Ukraine," end quote. But now, that's all forgiven, and the State Department claimed on Monday that Azov passed a vetting under the Leahy Law, which prohibits military aid to military units that have committed human rights abuses. The State Department said, quote, "After thorough review, Ukraine's 12th Special Forces Azov Brigade passed Leahy vetting as carried out by the U.S. Department of State," end quote. So U.S. military equipment, and so I'm sure that Azov has already gotten their hands on some U.S. military equipment, but what this means is that they could get, some of the very advanced missiles and things like that. And this means the U.S., this also includes training, that the U.S. could directly train Azov battalion fighters, in Europe, or if the U.S. ends up, or other, the U.S. still says they're not planning to send trainers to Ukraine, but we'll see. I know in some cases, I don't know if they were Azov guys, because we see this kind of neo-Nazi imagery used in some of the patches and pins that Ukrainian soldiers wear. I remember there was a story that some Ukrainian soldiers were sent home from Germany for wearing neo-Nazi symbols on their uniforms, which is a little awkward, right? And Germany's sending them the symbolism of German tanks, the Leopard tanks with the Iron Cross on them, being sent to Ukraine. It's just, man, there's a lot of symbolism there. So, they just don't care, the U.S. They're just going to keep pouring in weapons to Ukraine and now directly arming a neo-Nazi brigade.